AITA for confronting my family after they blamed me for my grandmother's missing wedding ring? I'm Christina, 36, and for 3 years my family treated me like I was the kind of person who would steal from a dead woman. The part that still makes me feel stupid is that before all of this I thought I was the dependable one. Not the favorite. Never that. That was Aaron. Aaron is my brother. He's 33, and growing up he was the kid my parents always had a reason for. If he forgot something, he was overwhelmed. If he spent money he didn't have, he was under pressure. If he showed up late, something had happened. If I forgot something, I was careless. If I said no, I was difficult. I didn't really question that arrangement when we were younger. Aaron was funny, charming, and good at getting people to forgive him before he had even finished apologizing. I was the one who handled things. Grandma June knew that. She was the person I called every Sunday afternoon. I took her to appointments when she stopped driving at night. I picked up prescriptions. I labeled containers in her freezer. I wrote dates on leftovers because she insisted she could remember when she made everything, even when she absolutely couldn't. She kept an old metal recipe tin with little index cards in it, most of them stained with oil or vanilla or something reddish that was probably tomato sauce from 20 years ago. She had recipes written in 3 different inks, and some cards had notes like, "Use less sugar than Ruth says," or, "Christina likes extra cinnamon." When she moved into assisted living, she gave me the tin. "You're the only one who'll actually use it," she said. I laughed and told her Aaron could learn to cook. She looked at me over the top of her glasses and said, "That boy thinks microwaving cheese counts as a recipe." That was Grandma. Her wedding ring was the other thing everyone associated with her. It wasn't huge or flashy. It was an old gold ring with a small diamond and a narrow band that had been repaired years earlier. Grandma once complained to me that the jeweler had left a tiny visible solder mark on the inside. "Every time I take it off, I see that ugly little scar," she said. Then she smiled and added, "I suppose old things earn scars." For years, different relatives joked about who would inherit it. Grandma never liked those conversations. She would shut them down and say things like, "I'm still wearing it. Thank you very much." As far as I knew, she never formally promised it to anyone. Then she died. It wasn't sudden, but that didn't make it easy. The last few weeks were exhausting. Family came in and out. People who hadn't visited her in months suddenly had opinions about everything. I spent a lot of time there because I was already used to helping. 2 days before she passed, I sat beside her for about an hour while she slept. Aaron stopped by later that evening. My parents were there on and off. Aunt Ruth visited. A nurse came in several times. Nothing about it felt suspicious at the time. After the funeral, my mother called me. Her name is Vivian. She was 60 then. She asked if I had taken anything from Grandma's jewelry box. I said no. There was a pause. Then she said, "Her wedding ring is gone." I remember standing in my kitchen with my hand on the counter. "Okay," I said. "Did you check everything?" "Of course I checked everything." "Maybe Grandma moved it." "She didn't move it." "Then maybe one of the staff put it somewhere safe." My mother sighed in the way she always did when she wanted me to feel childish without actually calling me childish. "Christina, I'm asking you because you were there. So were other people." "I know." "Then ask them too." Another pause. Then she said, "I'm not accusing anyone." That sentence became her favorite weapon. I told her again that I hadn't taken the ring. She said, "All right." I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, Aunt Ruth called and asked me very carefully if I had accidentally brought anything home from Grandma's room. I said no. She said, "Your mom is just upset." That was the first time I realized my mother had told someone else. Then a cousin texted Caleb, my husband, asking if I was okay because people were saying things. Caleb showed me the message. He's 38 now, and he has a much lower tolerance for my family's indirect nonsense than I do. "What people?" he asked. "I don't know." "You know." I did. I called my mother. I asked her exactly what she had told everyone. She said, "Nothing." Ruth asked if I took the ring. Ruth worries. Someone contacted Caleb. I can't control what people say. What did you say? I said some people had access to Grandma's things. Who is some people? You did have access. So did Aaron. The silence after I said his name was short, but I noticed it. My mother answered, Aaron wasn't helping her the way you were. That sentence was true, but she used it like evidence. I said, stop implying I stole from Grandma. I'm not implying anything. You are. If you're innocent, why are you so defensive? That was when Caleb, who was standing across the kitchen from me, closed his eyes and shook his head. I ended the call. He told me I needed to tell the family directly that the accusation was false. I didn't. That was my mistake. At the time, I thought refusing to participate in gossip was the dignified thing to do. I thought if I stayed calm and didn't turn Grandma's death into a family war, people would eventually realize how ridiculous the story was. I also thought my parents would get tired of it. Instead, my silence gave them room. My mother never said, Christina definitely stole the ring. She was smarter than that. She said things like, I wish I knew what happened. Or, some people had more access than others. Or, it's not about the ring. It's about trust. My father, Paul, didn't spread the story the way she did, but he backed it. Whenever I confronted him, he would say, let Grandma rest. The first time he said that, I almost laughed. How am I disturbing Grandma? I asked. I'm not the one telling people I robbed her. He frowned. Your mother is grieving. So am I. This family doesn't need another fight. Apparently, my reputation was an acceptable casualty if it prevented one. The changes came slowly enough that I could almost pretend they were unrelated. An invitation to a Christmas dinner came 3 days before the event, even though everyone else had known for weeks. At one Thanksgiving, Aunt Ruth asked Caleb to hold onto an envelope with gift cards instead of handing it to me. At a birthday dinner, I was seated at the end of a table with 2 teenagers and a folding chair squeezed against the wall. A cousin who used to ask me to watch her kids stopped asking. Nobody called me a thief to my face. They did something worse. They acted like I might be one. I could feel conversations change when I walked into rooms. If Grandma's name came up, someone would suddenly need to refill a drink. If an heirloom came out, somebody else would hold it. One Christmas, my mother counted serving spoons before I left. I watched her do it. She saw me watching. Neither of us said anything. Caleb stopped attending some events after that. I'm not going to sit there and watch people treat you like you're on probation, he said. I told him I didn't want them to think he was hostile. He stared at me. Christina, they think you stole your dead grandmother's wedding ring. I didn't have a good answer. He was frustrated with me, and I don't blame him. He never tried to tell me I had to cut them off. He never called my mother names. He just kept asking one question I hated. What are you waiting for them to do? I kept saying I didn't know. The truth was that I wanted my mother to correct it herself. I wanted her to come to me one day and say she had been wrong. I wanted my father to say, we should never have let people think that. I wanted Aaron, who barely said anything about the ring, to at least tell people I wasn't capable of it. Instead, Aaron avoided the subject. If someone mentioned Grandma's ring around him, he found a reason to leave the room or change the topic. I noticed, but I interpreted it generously. I thought he hated conflict. I thought he was embarrassed by the family drama. I thought a lot of things about Aaron that were easier than the truth. 3 years passed. Then my cousin Jenna got engaged. Jenna is Aunt Ruth's daughter. She's 29, and when we were younger, she followed me around at family gatherings because I was one of the older girls and she thought I was interesting. We lost some closeness as adults, especially after the ring accusation, but we were never openly hostile. About 6 months before her wedding, she called me. I want you in the wedding, she said. I actually thought I had misheard her. What? As a bridesmaid? If you want to. I asked whether her mother knew. She laughed nervously. Mom knows. Does my mother know? Longer pause. She knows I'm asking. I said, and she has opinions. Of course she did. Jenna rushed to add, I just don't want old drama. It's my wedding. I want people I care about there, and I don't want everybody relitigating everything. That word stuck with me. relitigating. As if there had been a trial. As if both sides had presented evidence. I nearly said no. Then I thought about being 16 and teaching Jenna how to curl her hair before a school dance. I thought about her sitting beside me at Grandma's funeral, crying into my shoulder. I said yes. Caleb wasn't thrilled. Not because of Jenna. Because he could see what was coming. Your mom will use this, he said. Use what? You standing up there. She'll make it about the ring. That would be insane. He gave me a look. I said, more insane. For the first couple of months things were mostly manageable. Jenna created a group chat. We talked dresses, shoes, schedules, all the normal stuff. Then one evening she sent a picture. It was a close-up of a gold ring in a small velvet box. The caption said, "Look what Aunt Vivian is letting me wear as my something old. Grandma June's ring." I stared at the photo so long that Caleb asked what was wrong. I handed him my phone. He looked at the picture, then at me. "I thought you stole that." So did I. The words came out before I could stop them. My stomach went cold. I zoomed in. The ring looked right from the top. Same shape, same narrow band, same small diamond. But something about it bothered me. I called Jenna. "Where did you get that?" She sounded surprised. "Aunt Vivian brought it over." "She said that's Grandma's ring?" "Yes." "Did she say where it was found?" There was a pause. "She said it had been recovered." "Recovered from where?" "Christina, I don't know." "Did she say I gave it back?" "No." "Did she say anyone gave it back?" "No." She just said there had been confusion. Confusion. 3 years of being treated like a thief had become confusion. I called my mother. She didn't answer. I texted her. "Where did Grandma's ring come from?" She replied almost an hour later. "Not everything needs to become an argument." I wrote back. "You told people I had access when it disappeared. Now you have it. Where did it come from?" Her answer was, "This is Jenna's wedding. Please do not make her weekend about your grievances." I called Caleb into the kitchen. He read the messages. Then he said, "Do you still have Grandma's recipe tin?" I looked toward the shelf. "Why?" "Because you once told me she kept receipts in weird places." That was true. Grandma used recipe cards as bookmarks, notepaper, and filing folders. I took the tin down. The metal lid scraped when I opened it. The cards smelled faintly like old spices. I went through them one by one. Apple cake. Cornbread. Pot roast. Peach cobbler. There were grocery lists, a church bulletin, 2 coupons that had expired more than a decade earlier, and a folded receipt tucked behind a card for dinner rolls. The top of the receipt had the name of a jewelry store. I sat down. It was a repair receipt for Grandma's ring from years earlier. There was an item number, a stone description, an appraisal reference, and a note in the repair section. Under it, in Grandma's handwriting, were 7 words. "If they fight over the ring, ask the jeweler to show you the mark under the band." I read it twice. Then again. Caleb didn't say anything for a few seconds. Finally he asked, "What mark?" I thought of Grandma complaining about that little solder scar. The repair. The next morning I called the jeweler. The store had been around for decades, but I didn't expect anyone to remember Grandma personally. I gave them the item number. The woman I spoke with asked me to hold. When she came back, her tone had changed. She said there was an appraisal history attached to that number and a release instruction on file from Grandma June. I had to verify some information. They wouldn't discuss everything over the phone. I emailed a scan of the repair receipt and identification showing my relationship. 2 days later, the jeweler called me back. They could provide copies of the old appraisal materials associated with the ring. Then the woman said something that made me grip the edge of my desk. "There is also a later transaction connected to that item number." What kind of transaction? I can't fully discuss it until the packet is released, but the original ring was brought in for sale. I felt my pulse in my neck. By whom? "I can only send you what the authorized file contains." I asked one more question. "Is the ring still there?" "No." I didn't tell my mother. I didn't tell Aaron. I didn't tell Jenna. Not yet. Instead, I asked Jenna if I could see the ring in person before the wedding. She thought I was being sentimental. We met at Aunt Ruth's house. Jenna brought the ring out in the velvet box. I held it carefully. My hands were steadier than I expected. I turned it over. The inside of the band was smooth. No little solder scar. I took a photo. Jenna asked, "What are you doing?" I handed it back. "Just checking something." Her expression changed. "Christina, I don't want to drag you into this until I know." "Know what?" "Whether that's actually Grandma's ring." She went very still. "Aunt Vivian said it is." "I know." I left before I said more. At home, I found old photographs of Grandma's hand. In one picture from a family dinner, the inside edge of the band was visible because she was holding a glass at an angle. You could just make out the tiny irregularity. It wasn't much. But it was there. I started saving everything. Screenshots of my mother's texts. Messages from relatives referencing the accusation. Old photos of the ring. The picture I took of Jenna's ring. The repair receipt. I wrote a simple timeline. Grandma dies. Ring reported missing. Mother says I had access. Rumors spread. No correction for 3 years. Replica ring appears. Jeweler confirms original ring had a later sale transaction. Caleb watched me work at the kitchen table. At one point he asked, "What are you going to do if it says what you think it says?" "I don't know." "Yes, you do." I looked up. He added, "You just don't know how far you want to go." That was true. The wedding was a week away. I didn't want to blow up Jenna's wedding. I also wasn't willing to stand beside her wearing a replica while my mother continued acting as though I had stolen the original. The jeweler said the packet had been mailed. Because of the timing, I asked them to send a scanned confirmation too. They didn't send everything electronically. Some of the signed transaction material was only coming by mail. But the appraisal pages were enough to confirm the original ring had that repair mark. The replica did not. Then the rehearsal day came. The envelope hadn't arrived by the time Caleb and I left. He asked if I wanted to skip dinner. No. Are you sure? No. That made him smile a little. He said, "Fair." The rehearsal itself was tense but uneventful. My mother kept hovering around Jenna, adjusting things that didn't need adjusting. At one point she said, loud enough for me to hear, "Family traditions matter, especially when people respect them." I ignored it. Paul barely looked at me. Aaron arrived late. Of course he did. When he saw me, he gave me a quick half-smile and said, "Hey Chris." Like nothing had happened. Like 3 years of silence was neutral. I almost asked him right then whether he had ever touched Grandma's ring. I didn't. The dinner was at a private room in a restaurant. Nothing extravagant. Just long tables, speeches, appetizers, people pretending there was no tension. Jenna was trying hard to enjoy herself. I made a point of not bringing up the ring. Then one of the wedding party members asked Jenna to get everyone together for a quick run-through of where people would stand the next day. Jenna waved me over. My mother stepped in front of me. Not physically blocking me exactly but close enough. She said, "I don't think that's appropriate." Jenna looked exhausted. "Aunt Vivian, not now." My mother lowered her voice, but not enough. "Thieves don't stand beside brides." I heard every word. So did the people closest to us. Jenna closed her eyes. Aunt Ruth said, "Vivian." Paul leaned toward me immediately. "Do not make a scene." That sentence did something to me. Not because it was new, because it was so familiar. My mother had just called me a thief in front of the wedding party. My father was warning me about my behavior. I looked at Jenna. She looked mortified. I said, "If you want me to leave, I will leave." She opened her mouth, but I kept going. "I mean that. This is your wedding. If you want me gone, Caleb and I will go right now." My mother said, "Thank you." I held up my hand without looking at her. "But I'm not going to admit I stole anything. Not for your wedding. Not for this family. Not for anyone." Jenna stared at me. What are you talking about? I took out my phone. Before I could answer, Caleb touched my elbow. My phone, he said quietly. I looked at him. He had a notification from our doorbell camera. An overnight envelope had been delivered at home by mistake that afternoon, delayed from the morning batch. Our neighbor, who had access to our porch while we were away, had messaged Caleb because the envelope was marked from the jeweler and required attention. The timing was absurd. Caleb called the neighbor. A few minutes later, she sent clear photos of the contents. I opened the first image. Appraisal photo. Second image. Repair description. Third image. A sales receipt. My eyes went straight to the signature line. Aaron. Not a similar name. Not initials. Aaron's full signature. The receipt showed the original item number. Grandma's ring. He had sold it less than 2 weeks after the funeral. I looked up. Aaron was standing about 10 feet away. He saw my face. Then he saw my phone. Something in his expression changed. It was tiny, but it was enough. I asked Jenna, "Do you want this privately or here?" My mother said, "There is nothing to discuss." Jenna snapped, "I wasn't asking you." Then she looked at me. "What is this?" I held out my phone. "Your ring isn't Grandma's." She frowned. My mother said, "That is ridiculous." I turned the phone toward Jenna first. I showed her the old appraisal photo, then the repair note describing the solder mark, then the photo I had taken of the ring Vivian gave her. "No mark," I said. Jenna took the ring off her finger. She looked inside the band. My mother said, "That proves nothing." I swiped to the next photo. "This is the receipt for the original ring." Aaron started. "Christina." I looked at him. "No. You can wait." I handed the phone to Jenna. She read the receipt. Then she looked at Aaron. "What is this?" He rubbed his face. My mother moved quickly. "This is exactly why I didn't want this discussed here." Aunt Ruth said, "Vivian, what is it?" My mother said nothing. Jenna handed the phone to her mother. Ruth read it. Her eyes moved from the screen to Aaron. "You sold June's ring?" Aaron said, "It was a long time ago." I actually laughed once. Not because it was funny, because that was the defense. 3 years of being treated like a thief, and he had a long time ago. I said, "You sold it 11 days after the funeral." He looked at me. "I had a money problem. You let everyone think I stole it." I didn't tell them that. "No, Mom did." My mother snapped, "I never said you stole it." I had been waiting years for that sentence. I opened my messages. I read her own words back to her. Some people had access. "You were there. If you are innocent, why are you so defensive? Not everything needs to become an argument." Then I looked at my father. And every time I asked Dad to correct it, he told me to let Grandma rest. Paul said, "This is not the place. We can handle this as a family." I asked, "When?" He frowned. "What? When were you planning to handle it?" He didn't answer. I turned back to Aaron. "Did Mom know?" He looked at her. That was answer enough. Vivian said, "He came to me after he made a mistake." Aunt Ruth said, "What mistake?" My mother looked around the room. People weren't yelling. Nobody was applauding. Most of them just looked uncomfortable and confused. That made it worse for her, I think. She couldn't turn it into a spectacle if people were simply waiting for an answer. She said, "Aaron was in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Jenna asked. Aaron said, "Debt." I said, "So you sold it?" "Yes. And Mom found out." He swallowed. "Yes. And instead of telling everyone, she let them blame me. I didn't know she'd keep doing it." I stared at him. 3 years, Aaron. "I know. You had 3 years to say one sentence." He looked angry now, which somehow felt more honest than the shame. "What did you want me to do? Blow up the whole family?" I said, "You needed money for 1 week. You let me pay for it for 3 years." He looked away. Jenna set the replica ring on the table. It made a soft little click against the plate. "What is this ring then?" she asked. My mother said, "I had another one made." There it was. The second lie. Not a misunderstanding. Not confusion. A replica. Aunt Ruth looked at her sister. "You had a copy made?" Vivian said. "I was trying to fix things." Ruth asked, "Fix what?" "The family." Ruth's face changed. My mother rushed on. "You have no idea what it was like." Aaron was already struggling. Christina was angry. Everyone was grieving. I thought if I could replace the ring, eventually this could go away. I said, "It didn't go away." She turned on me. "Because you never let anything go." I felt Caleb shift beside me, but he stayed quiet. I said, "You were still calling me a thief 5 minutes ago." "I did not call you a thief." Jenna said, "You literally said, 'Thieves don't stand beside brides.'" My mother looked at her. I was upset. Aunt Ruth held up the phone. "Vivian, I am asking you one question. Is any of this fake?" My mother stared at her. Ruth repeated, "Is the jeweler's receipt fake?" "No." "Is Aaron's signature fake?" "No." "Is that ring a replica?" My mother didn't answer right away. Then she said, "It was made from the same design." Ruth said, "That was not my question." "No," Vivian said finally. "It is not the original." Jenna pushed the ring farther away from herself. My father said, "Can we please stop? We have a wedding tomorrow." Jenna looked at him. "I have a wedding tomorrow." Paul seemed almost surprised by the correction. Jenna turned to me next. Her eyes were shiny, but she wasn't crying. "I asked you for one weekend without drama." "I know. And you brought this here." "I didn't come here planning to do this." "You had the jeweler information already." "I had part of it." "You could have waited." That hurt because she was not wrong. I said, "I could have." My mother jumped in. "There. Even she admits it." Jenna snapped, "Stop." Then she looked back at me. I said, "If your aunt had not called me a thief tonight, I was going to wait until after your wedding to show the full packet." That was true. I had planned to talk to Jenna privately after the ceremony, or sooner if the ring issue came up again. "But she did," Jenna said. "Yes." "And you chose to answer." "Yes." She rubbed her forehead. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that right now." "You don't have to do anything tonight." My mother said, "She should apologize to you." I looked at her. "For what?" "For ruining the rehearsal dinner." Jenna said, "Aunt Vivian, you started this." My mother began to cry. Not loud sobbing. Tears, trembling voice, the whole performance of being wounded by consequences. "I was trying to protect my son." I said, "By sacrificing your daughter." She looked at me sharply. "I was trying to protect this family." "You didn't lose a ring. You traded my name to keep his clean." That was the only sentence from that night that came out sharper than I intended. Nobody said anything for a moment. Then Aaron muttered, "You always make everything sound worse than it was." I turned to him. "Did you sell the ring?" "Yes." "Did you know people thought I stole it?" He didn't answer. "Did you correct them?" "No." "Then I'm describing it accurately." The dinner did not recover. People tried. Someone cut the cake that had been ordered. A few guests left early. Aunt Ruth took Jenna outside for a while. My father told me I should go. I said I would if Jenna asked. When she came back in, she looked exhausted. She said, "I don't want anyone discussing this anymore tonight." I nodded. Then she added, "Christina, I want you at the wedding tomorrow, but I need space tonight." "Okay." My mother protested. Jenna said, "I'm not doing this again." Caleb and I left. In the car, neither of us spoke for the first 10 minutes. Then he asked, "Are you okay?" "No." "Do you regret it?" I thought about that. "I regret that Jenna got hit by it." "That's not what I asked." "No," I said. I don't regret telling the truth. The next morning I almost didn't go to the wedding. Then Jenna texted me. Please come. No ring. No speeches about family honor. I just want to get married. I went. I didn't wear the bridesmaid dress until I was sure she still wanted me standing with her. She did. The replica ring was not used. Jenna wore a simple band she had already planned to exchange during the ceremony. My mother barely spoke to me. My father didn't speak to me at all. Aaron didn't attend the reception. The wedding happened. It wasn't destroyed. But it wasn't untouched either. There was tension. People whispered. Jenna smiled in photos, but I could tell she was carrying something heavy behind her eyes. That is part of the price I paid, and part of the price she paid without asking for it. 3 days later, my mother sent me a message. I am sorry you felt blamed. I never wanted this to hurt you the way it did. We all made mistakes. I read it twice. Then I showed Caleb. He said, "That's not an apology." I know. For once I didn't argue with him. I sent one response. You didn't make me feel blamed. You blamed me. Aaron sold the ring. You knew. Dad knew. You allowed relatives to treat me like a thief for 3 years. If you want a relationship with me, start by saying what happened without changing the words. She didn't respond. My father called. I let it go to voicemail. His message said, "Your mother is devastated. This family needs to heal." I saved it. Then I did something that became the next fight. The jeweler's packet also contained documentation showing the original ring had been insured. My parents had filed a claim after the ring disappeared. The paperwork didn't name me directly as the thief, but it described the loss in a way that lined up with the story they had been telling relatives. Disappearance after access by family members during Grandma's final days. The replica had been ordered after that. I called the insurance company. I did not accuse my parents of a crime. I did not make up facts. I told them I had been indirectly implicated in the story surrounding the claim, and that I had documentation showing the ring had been sold by another family member before the claim was resolved. They gave me an address and a reference number for a correction statement. I sent copies of the jeweler records and a short written timeline. That was it. No dramatic raid. No arrest. No handcuffs. Just paperwork. About 2 weeks later, my father left a voicemail saying the insurer had contacted them for clarification. His voice was furious. You had no right to involve outsiders in family business. That sentence almost impressed me. For 3 years they had involved every aunt, uncle, cousin, and family friend they could reach. But the insurance company was apparently the line. I didn't call back. The inquiry created financial pressure. My parents had to produce documents and answer questions about the claim and the replacement ring. I do not know every detail because I stopped asking. That was another change. Before this, I had spent years trying to understand every mood in my family. Was Mom angry? Was Dad disappointed? Was Aaron struggling? Did Ruth think I was difficult? Did Jenna believe me? After the rehearsal dinner, I got tired of treating everyone else's reaction like a problem I had to solve. I also stopped contributing money to family expenses. I had been paying a share of holiday meals, helping with gifts for older relatives, covering little costs that nobody noticed because I was the responsible one. That ended. When my mother sent a group message about splitting the cost of a family anniversary dinner, I left the group. When my father asked me to sign a family statement, describing the ring situation as a misunderstanding caused by grief and poor communication, I refused. It was not a misunderstanding. They understood exactly what had happened. Aaron had sold the ring. My mother had covered it. My father had supported her. I had been blamed. That was not a communication problem. It was a decision. The family reaction was mixed. Aunt Ruth called me about a week after the wedding. She apologized. Not perfectly but directly. She said, "I should have asked you instead of assuming your mother had a reason." I told her I appreciated that. Then she said, "I also wish this had not happened at Jenna's rehearsal dinner." I do too. There was a pause. "Both things can be true," she said. Yes. That was the most reasonable thing anyone in my family had said in years. Some cousins sent messages. One said, "I always thought there had to be more to it." I didn't answer that one. If you thought there had to be more to it, you could have asked me. Another cousin apologized for treating me differently. I accepted. Not everyone did. One aunt told me I had been technically right but morally reckless. A family friend said I should have waited until after the wedding. Someone else said reporting the insurance issue was vindictive. I understand why people argue about that part. I knew there could be financial consequences. I sent it anyway. My reasoning was simple. My name had been used to support a false story for 3 years. I was not going to help preserve that story once I had proof. Jenna did not speak to me much for about a month. I gave her space. Then she called. She said, "I'm still mad." "I know. I believe you." "Okay. I think Aunt Vivian did something horrible." "I agree. I also hate that I remember my rehearsal dinner as the night I found out half the family had lied to me." "I know." She was quiet. Then she said, "I don't know if I'm mad at you for that or if I'm mad because you were the person who showed me." "Probably both." She gave a small laugh. "Probably." I told her she didn't owe me immediate forgiveness for the timing. She said, "You don't owe me an apology for not confessing to something you didn't do." That mattered. We did not suddenly become best friends again. We started talking. Slowly. Aaron sent me one text. "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to get that far." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I wrote, "When did you mean for it to stop?" He didn't answer for 2 days. Finally, "I don't know." That was probably the most truthful thing he ever said about it. He had needed money. He sold the ring. My mother rescued him. Once she blamed me. Correcting the lie would have required him to admit what he had done. Every day he waited made confession harder. So he kept waiting. 3 years passed because 3 years were more convenient than one honest conversation. I didn't block him, but I stopped having a relationship with him. Not forever, maybe. I don't know. But I wasn't going to accept one vague apology and go back to pretending he was just my irresponsible little brother who meant well. He had watched me be punished for his choice. That changed what brother meant to me. My relationship with my parents changed even more. My mother sent a few more messages. Some were angry. Some were sad. One said, "I hope you're happy now." I wasn't. That seemed to confuse her. She thought consequences meant I must be celebrating. I wasn't. I had my name back. I didn't get my 3 years back. I didn't get the version of my mother I had kept hoping would appear. I didn't get the brother I thought I had. Caleb asked me one night a few weeks after everything whether I felt lighter. We were in the kitchen. Grandma's recipe tin was still on the counter because I hadn't put it away after making her cornbread. "A little," I said. "Happy?" "No." He nodded. "I think that's normal." I looked at the tin. There were scratches on the lid I had never noticed before. For years I had treated it like proof that Grandma trusted me. Like proof I belonged. After everything happened, I realized I didn't need it to prove that. I had been there. I knew what I did for her. I knew what I did not do. The ring was gone. The replica stayed with my mother as far as I know. Jenna did not want it. I never tried to track down the original buyer. I could have obsessed over getting the ring back. For a while I thought maybe I should. But the ring had stopped feeling like Grandma to me. It had become a receipt, an insurance claim, a rumor, a weapon. The recipe tin was different. One Sunday I went through it and pulled out the cards in Grandma's handwriting. I put the repair receipt and copies of the jeweler records in an envelope and stored them with my legal papers. Then I put the recipe cards back. Apple cake. Cornbread. Pot roast. Peach cobbler. Extra cinnamon. I put the tin on the kitchen shelf. That is where it still is. I don't sit at every family dinner anymore. I don't answer calls just because someone thinks family is a magic word that erases what happened. And I don't argue when people tell me I should move on. I did move on. I just did it without carrying their lie with me. If you liked it, Don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.